Hi, welcome back to my Midlife Capers. We are on part 5 of the 10-part series on the writing process. This time we are going to talk about writer's block. I'm sure you've heard of it. I'm sure you've probably even looked at workshops and different things like that promise to help you work through a writer's block. And that's not to say that there aren't good ones out there. If you find something that works, run with it. That's always my mantra. But I want to talk a little bit more about something that I don't really hear people discuss around writer's block, which is the types of writer's block that you might encounter. And depending on which one you are coming up against, there are different things you need to do about it. So I distinguish them into two categories. There's a functional writer's block, and then there's a creative writer's block. The functional writer's block comes in when you are struggling with how to structure your story or your book if it's nonfiction. That deals with the more functional aspects of creating this content. Maybe if it's nonfiction, you aren't really sure exactly what order to lay your points out, or you feel like you have a whole lot to say about one thing and not another, or you are struggling to find the right way to present some of your material. And then a creative block is where you are just stuck on how to say it and on how to paint the picture that you want, whether that's fiction or nonfiction. You are you're just having difficulty putting words to the page, and there are different solutions for how to break free from that. In a functional writer's block, one of the best things you can do is go back to the drawing board as far as your outline and the research you've done, as we talked about in the previous episode. Look at what you've gathered in the way of information, and then pair that with the structure of your book. One of the most important things, and I believe I mentioned this when we were talking about structure, is not to be so married to it that you're not willing to restructure. If you find that you have a whole lot on one chapter and not another, look at whether or not they can be merged, or if the really long chapter is something that can be split into two topics, or two components, and just different aspects of that topic. And maybe you just need to have several shorter chapters rather than a fewer number and some longer chapters. So, and a lot of times you're not going to know that until you actually start writing the chapter itself and getting that information in there and all of your supporting documentation. For nonfiction, look at, again, your chapter summaries and determine whether you're trying to cram too much of a story segment into a chapter. While it's ideal to have them relatively the same length, if some are going to come up a little short, but you really need to stop the story, or you have a break in the story at that point, that's okay. It really comes down to what makes sense and what's going to create the best reading experience for your audience. But so that's the first thing when you're dealing with a functional block, is revisit your structure, your outline, and the research you have, and the story you're trying to tell. And if you have to readjust and reshape some of the way you're unfolding the content, do that. You might need like a 30,000 foot view on it and have someone else come in and take a look and say, well, I think it would work better if you didn't introduce this point until later on, or if it's fiction, look at the flow of the story and say, well, you can do more um, to paint the scene for what's happening in this chapter and get a few more hundred words out of it, or even another 1,000 words into your chapter, um, just by having an outside perspective show where maybe you have some holes that or some opportunities that you've not pursued in what you've written so far. um, and but yeah, just don't be afraid to scrap what you've got in the way of structure. I know that sounds like really scary to throw something out the window when you've put so much work into it. But if it's keeping you from completing the work, then is it really serving you? Is the question you have to ask. Now, with a creative block, that is a little bit different, and that's where some of those tools that are out there, some writing workshop kinds of things that might help you break free. If you're really struggling with getting the words on a page, going to the journaling is a really great way to kind of break up the stagnancy or the whatever it is that's kind of standing in the way. Maybe writing about something else, period, will help you with getting back into the flow of just putting words on a page. Sometimes it's just as simple as that. And sometimes it's a matter of changing your environment, so that you're in a space that's a little bit more supportive of creative flow. There are other things that you might have to change up about your process. Time of day is sometimes the situation. I have times where I just know that I'm too bogged down with administrative things that I have to do with my life, and that interferes with the creative flow because I'm just not in the right headspace. And so I will take a break and knock out all of that stuff, answer emails or run errands or whatever. And then I can come back to my writing space with kind of a clear slate and a little bit more energy around trying to get back to writing. Another thing I do is reread what I've already written, get my brain back in it, and rather than just trying to pick up from where I left off, because sometimes that's the main thing that is interfering with the creative flow, is that you're just not in that space, in your headspace. And just reminding you of where you were and kind of getting excited about it again, getting re-energized about what you're trying to accomplish. You might actually read it out loud to yourself so that you're putting yourself kind of in the seat of the audience, the reader, rather than the creator, and that can unlock things for you. And there are a variety of other things. Do some research on various creative writing prompts and things like that can help. Sometimes maybe you're still in the world, but taking yourself out of the encased segment of the world that is the story you're trying to tell, and write a blog about one of the characters. That could also be really cool supplemental promotional material that you could use later if it turns out to be something you'd like to keep. But or write a dialogue with a character and someone in your life who might enjoy engaging with them. Something like that just kind of like breaks the entrenchment of the world you've put yourself into, and just do something that will kind of like shake things up and unlock areas of your brain that seem to be kind of seized up, because the longer you think about your block, the more firm it gets. So really, that's bottom line, is just do something different for a moment, and don't let yourself feel so overwhelmed and frustrated by the fact that you feel stymied in what you're trying to do. Um, and that can take a lot of shapes, look a lot of different ways, and it really comes down to what's going to serve you, and moving to the next stage of your creative process. Anyway, I wish you the best of luck in your adventures there, and I will be back with another tip really soon. Bye.